It's straight evil. First off, if I was a parent and my 5th grade daughter had to sleep and shower in some kind of cabin at some summer camp that I paid money to send my child to, and there was a man calling himself a woman sleeping in her cabin, showering with her, that guy he'd be in jail. He would be in jail. Well, first off, my husband would have beat him into the ground and then he'd be in jail. But this is exactly how we need to stand up against this stuff. And then the men, this guy, Leah Thompson, I'm sorry, that's William, and he's not a she, he's a he. He should not be competing in women's swimming. No, but here's what we have to do. We have to draw the line in the sand and say we are not willing to cross it. This is such perversion, but it's also grooming children. It's grooming them to believe things that are lies and that are completely wrong. No, children are not born a certain way thinking they're another gender. It's their parents that are training them that way. It's these mothers that think it's like a handbag. They need to have a boy, a girl, and a trans child, like as if there's some kind of accessory.
A status, it's exactly, it's like Hollywood stars. And all the things they've engaged in, exactly.
So that is 2 absolutely sick individuals, Alex Jones and Marjorie Greene. I don't know if Marjorie Greene, who ostensibly is an elected congresswoman, she doesn't seem to care about that position and doesn't have access to committee hearings and things like that. Maybe she's trying out for his co-host, I don't know. But they decided that they would team up to talk about how not only trans people should be locked up, but before you lock them up, she spoke favorably about her husband beating a trans woman in this case. So that is an elected congresswoman fantasizing about violence against a community that already experiences an absolute epidemic of violence on a daily basis, which generally is ignored. Now she is encouraging more of it, Jeff.
Yeah, look, I already originally thought the dead naming was bad enough, but no, now we're at violence. Now we're at encouraging violence against a community that already sees, as you pointed out, an incredible amount of violence. This cannot end well, but understand that that's exactly what they're trying to do. That's exactly what their goal is to try to fearmonger against the trans community. They used to do it to the gay community, now they're doing it to the trans community, and now, of course, they're using it as a way to try to stay in power, essentially, by scaring the crap out of people, by saying things that are fundamentally untrue. He goes and talks about how, it's the grooming of the children. No, it's the parents that are doing it. Now, what's interesting about that is, John, you and I have probably covered about how conservatives have been saying, well, the parents need to choose what books they have in their classroom, well, what kind of educations they get. Well, they seem to trust the parents on that, but yet also are making the assertion that the parents are now forcing people to be trans. Mm-hmm. What a ridiculous and counterfactual argument. And it's also counter to their own arguments about, hey, we should give parental rights and we should have more respect
100%.
for trans choices.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that you bring that up. We're gonna talk more about Texas in just a little bit. But the reason I want to make sure that we cover both of these stories is that, like, most of the people who watch our show are they are regular, normal, sane people. They don't spend a lot of time watching Infowars or the Daily Wire or the Daily Caller and stuff. So you may not understand that this is a constant thing. They talk about the trans community on literally a daily basis. Never to the community, by the way. You will never see them bringing on a trans activist or a regular trans person to talk about their life experience, because they're not interested in learning, evolving, developing empathy, and they certainly don't want to be a platform for their viewers doing that. No, they talk at their base about the community, demonizing and inspiring not just a lack of respect for the inherent human worth of these individuals, but no, you can beat them. You can be. Well, if you just find out that a person is trans, you should beat them. Think about how you've got a congresswoman talking about how cool it would be if her husband beat someone. And there's probably not gonna be any response. We're covering this. I'm sure anyone who comes across the story is gonna be disgusted by it, but it is just the latest horrendous, violent thing coming out of Marjorie Greene's mouth. Is Nancy Pelosi gonna censure her over this? Standing in solidarity with the trans community? Can we even spare the time every day for the constant violent rhetoric coming out of Marjorie Greene's mouth? And by the way, again, this is just raising awareness. I'm not calling for anyone's shows to be taken down. Alex Jones, by the way, is technically banned from Spotify, showing that Spotify can ban shows when they want to. But if you go on Spotify, you can still see full versions of a show. He is technically banned, but they are still allowed to upload. You can see multiple versions of it that people upload. So they are providing a platform for calls for violence against the trans community. Any thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, going back to how they have to fearmonger about this stuff because they literally have nothing else. I mean, do you ever hear Alex Jones and Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about actual workers, the needs of workers, wages, things like that? I know every once in a while, Marjorie Taylor Greene will come up with this insane thing called corporate communism, which again makes absolutely no sense. And then we'll support the, Canadian truckers, many of whom are not actually truckers, at least the organizers were, and were members of white nationalist neo-Nazi movements that weren't at all in favor of things like, I don't know, higher wages, better working conditions, and things that would actually help real Canadian truckers on the ground. And so they would support things like that, those movements, but they don't actually support regular working people. What is one thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene has actually tried to accomplish for the average American worker? Nothing. You can't come up with anything, and she can't do anything anyway because she has no committee assignments because she got kicked off all of them. And so that's all they have to default to. And by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene says she has nothing to do. That's why she's always on these different shows. That's why she's constantly talking to Steve Bannon, constantly talking to now Alex Jones, which, by the way, that is a marriage created in hell right there.
Yeah.
Where you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Alex Jones on the same show. They're going to talk about the next new conspiracy theory, and maybe maybe they bonded over their love of anti-Semitic laser forest fire conspiracies. I don't know, but all I know is that it is bad for the trans people, for the trans community, who is already facing so much hate and discrimination, and 100%. It's going to get worse for them.
Yeah, 100%. Bear in mind, she thinks that it is inherently dangerous to have a trans person near a kid. She traveled to DC to stalk the teen survivors of mass shootings.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.